12 here in the capital city. How is it at your end? Hope the weather is friendly. Good evening and welcome to News Extra, the news bulletin that comes to you with that extra touch. And tonight, trust me, it's extra touch raised to power 2. We begin with the pandemic and we go to where it all started, China. As African partners, that country in the fight. Also tonight, there is a beat on security as the National Security Advisor storms the Northwest on a presidential mission with a message. The political scene is also heating up with the Edo State revelations and court pronouncements. That's not all. The lawmakers are back on the beat. We shall stop by, there to see what they have been up to. There's a lot more, but let me not let the whole cat out of the bag. So sit back and enjoy the package. After all, the taste of the pudding is in the eating. I am Fatima Umar and this is News Extra. You're welcome. Now, Nigeria says it will not only support but actively participate in any collective action at both regional and global levels towards tackling the coronavirus pandemic and its fallout. And President Muhammadu Buhari stated this while addressing participants at an extraordinary China-Africa summit on solidarity against COVID-19. President, however, insists that humanity must be placed at the center of their vision as they develop more creative, responsive, and humane health system for common prosperity. And State House correspondent Adamu Sambo has the details.
Convened by the presidents of China, South Africa and Senegal, this extraordinary China-Africa summit on solidarity against COVID-19 is initiated to discuss joint response against the global pandemic in furtherance of efforts at building a closer community of shared future. From the presidential villa, President Muhammadu Buhari joined a virtual interactive session which also had as participants other African leaders, United Nations Secretary General, as well as the Director General of the World Health Organization.
The COVID-19 outbreak is a clear wake-up call for all of humanity.
President Muhammadu Buhari said apart from instituting strong surveillance and infection prevention as well as control measures, Nigeria also developed practical policies to protect lives and livelihoods. The world, he said, is now at a critical crossroads as almost every country has been hit hard by the COVID-19 tragedy. As energy and resources are mobilized towards adequately responding to the challenges of the virus, the president said global partnership is key towards bringing to an end the pandemic.
As we face a common pervasive and invisible enemy, it is important that we all remain united to save our shared humanity, because this virus knows no borders. The fight against a global pandemic that continues to take so many lives, threaten livelihoods, and challenging the very fabric of societies requires enhanced cooperation and worldwide solidarity. We must not fail because the lives and livelihood of our peoples depend on our collective efforts.
President Buhari acknowledged the support of the Chinese government for its tremendous assistance to Africa and in particular Nigeria, which he said has not only strengthened COVID-19 containment efforts but further enhanced the spirit of solidarity and bond of partnership amongst FOCAC member states.
I see this opportunity to reiterate the need to put humanity at the center of our vision for common prosperity. We must learn lessons and share knowledge from research as we develop more creative, responsive, and humane health systems, improve crisis management protocols, and support each other in the battle against COVID-19.
And as confirmed COVID-19 cases in Africa surpass 250,000 with nearly 7,000 deaths, Chinese leader Xi Jinping described as a matter of priority helping the continent in capacity building as well as improving public health systems by his country. China has already pledged to provide $2 billion over the next 2 years towards helping the COVID-19 response, as well as enhancing economic and social development in the affected developing countries.
The Chinese and African people are poised to embrace better days ahead.
During the virtual interactive dialogue, participants appreciated the United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres for the recent launch of a COVID-19 response and recovery fund. This is aimed at supporting low and middle income countries towards tackling the health emergency, as well as addressing social and economic consequences of the crisis. From the State House, Adamu Sambo, NTA News.
In the meantime, the World Health Organization has accepted results on the use of DEXAMETHASONE as treatment for critically ill COVID-19 patients, just as Beijing adds more measures to curb new coronavirus outbreak. As Joyce W.H.O is here with developments on the global pandemic.
The World Health Organization, WHO, says it is moving to update its guidelines on treating people stricken with COVID-19 to reflect results of a clinical trial that showed a cheap common steroid can help save critically ill patients. Trial results announced on Tuesday showed dexamethasone, used since the 1960s to reduce inflammation in diseases, has cut death rates by around a third among the most severely ill COVID-19 patients admitted in hospital. Meanwhile, the United Kingdom's chief medical officers have ordered with immediate effect the use of the steroid treatment dexamethasone on critically ill COVID-19 patients. In an urgent letter from the UK's 4 chief medical officers to clinicians, they said the treatment had a clear place in the management of hospitalized patients with COVID-19. And from China comes a report that Beijing has raised its alert level after more than 137 persons tested positive in a new outbreak of coronavirus. Hundreds of flights have been cancelled and schools and universities shut. A sharp pullback for the nation that declared victory over the virus in March. In the meantime, head of Ghana's Health Insurance Authority, NHIA, Dr. Dani Selby, has tested positive for COVID-19. She made a disclosure in an interview with Newsmen. Dr. Selby has since gone into self-isolation. And statistics by Worldometer collated as at 6 p.m. indicates that the world has recorded 8,313,126 confirmed cases of coronavirus, with 447,437 deaths. Of the number, Africa accounts for 263,085 infections. Nigeria now has a total of 17,148 confirmed cases of COVID-19, out of which 5,623 patients have recovered, while 455 deaths have been recorded in the country. And that's it from here. Many thanks for watching. I am Joyce Ometu.
The search for a homegrown cure for COVID-19 and other life-threatening diseases like malaria and cancer is underway by a team of health professionals in the country. The AZ Biotech National Health Emergency Group of Researchers and Developers in Jos Plateau State says the drug will also boost the immunity of the body against the diseases. And Ijoma Ozemena, on a tour of the plant yard, reports that Artemisia annua, used for the medicine, is also used by Madagascar for a drug for the global pandemic.
Artemisia is an edible vegetable naturalized in most parts of the world, including India, and has a lifespan of 5 months. In 2008, some health professionals across the nation thought it wise to eradicate malaria in Nigeria and discovered a plant which had artemisinin, active ingredient used in producing malaria drug. The artemisinin got from China was originally 0.8%, but when developed in Nigeria became 4.8%, making it higher in content and efficacy to cure ailments.
Since we have the plant here, we feel that it will be necessary for us to develop our own malaria drugs. And if malaria drugs are produced in this country, using this plant, our own plant, a sachet of malaria drug cannot be more than 50 naira. Nigeria needs about 3,000 hectares of land to produce enough malaria drugs that will cater for Nigerians.
And for cancer, The artemisinin content of this plant, coupled or synergistically working with other components like the scopolectin, has the ability to kill 98% of cancer cells within 16 hours.
In the process of innovative and integrative ways of eradicating malaria, the challenge of COVID-19 came up, prompting the federal government to search for integrated medicine.
Lost to dot the I's and cross the T's to come up with something that is acceptable to the people. Come up with something that can take care of this virus.
At the moment, this produced drug is undergoing trials, while the vaccines and injectables are being developed for the same COVID-19 and awaiting consent of the Federal Ministry of Science and Technology. In Jos Ijoma Ozemena, NTA News.
Pleasant one there, I must say. Now, Kubwa General Hospital, a foremost government health facility in Abuja, the Federal Capital Territory, has been trending on social media again over an alleged coronavirus scare. Correspondent Hakimat Aliyu, on a fact-finding visit to the hospital, reports that things are normal in the hospital and the unfounded story of coronavirus infection turned out false.
On the 16th of June 2020, the internet again was awash with the news stating that there is confusion in Kubwa General Hospital relating to coronavirus scare. The report also stated one dead and all the wards shut down. On my visit to Kubwa General Hospital, I was received by the Chief Medical Director, Dr. Lasisi Muhyiddin, who took us on a tour of the facility, indicating things are going on fine with patients being attended to.
Like how many patients do you think you saw? How many? 103.
Some of the outpatients who sought to know why NTA's camera was on them.
The hospital is open. My wife just put to bed this morning.
Younger sister is here. She was admitted here since yesterday. There's a lot of patients here. People have been coming in and going out. There's nothing. There's no corona or any patient of anything. Everything is available.
It would be recalled that a few months ago, a similar news that the hospital had cases of COVID-19 was on the social media.
When Nigeria, the whole of the country was having less than 30 cases, they said we have 100 admissions in this hospital, which was not true. So this is just one in the trade.
What is the origin of the story and the motive behind it? Whatever the answer, many believe it is a call for all to rise against fake news, which brings no good other than negative impact on the society. In Abuja, Hakimat Aliyu, NTA News.
Oh, thank you so much, Hakimat. Now, following economic implications of COVID-19, Kano State government is to cut down its 2020 budget by 30%. And Governor Abdullahi Umar Ganduje disclosed this at a meeting with media practitioners as part of engagements marking this year's Democracy Day. Abdullahi Mustafa has the report.
Like other events and programs, this year's Democracy Day wasn't observed due to COVID-19 pandemic. Instead, it was celebrated through interactions with critical stakeholders in the state. Among those invited to the government house were members of the Kano Media Executives Forum. It was used by Governor Abdullahi Umar Ganduje to highlight the numerous achievements of his administration in security, healthcare services, education, agriculture, and infrastructural development. While enumerating other achievements in the COVID-19 response, the governor disclosed that the economic challenges caused by the pandemic prompted the state to cut down its 2020 budget.
This disease is a big friend to highly populated areas. It's a big friend to mega cities, and Kano State is not left alone.
Having played a major role in the fight against COVID-19 here in Kano, we thought by the privilege of His Excellency, we have automatically enrolled ourselves as frontline workers.
Chairman, Kano Media Executives Forum, Daniel Aboki, thanked the governor for his administration's regard for the media and reassured of continued support towards promoting peace and development of the state. In Kano, Abdullahi Mustafa, NTA News.
In another development, Nigeria's maritime sector is sure affected by the coronavirus pandemic. However, industry players say some couple of lessons have been learned and the industry is ready to move to the next level. Digitizing all ports across the country by March 2021 is one of the steps towards reducing human contact and bringing about higher productivity. Oyana Kalu Oka in this report tells us more.
Ports operations continued during the lockdown in Nigeria as the country tackles COVID-19. The Executive Secretary of the Nigerian Shippers Council said the maritime industry learned some lessons and it is now time for inward search and reflection. Technology, he says, plays a crucial role in the way forward.
We want to get 90%, I said it, 90% digital by March next year. We're already about 60% average. So it's just to put it up. By that time we'll have the cargo tracking note, we hope. Shippers Council must drive efficiency at the ports.
With the maritime sector contributing about 2 trillion naira to the country's GDP, rather than the expected 7 trillion naira annually, the council called on the Central Bank of Nigeria to support the development of the maritime industry.
But here is an industry that will give oil a run for its money if properly managed.
The Executive Secretary disclosed that as a result of the lesson learned due to COVID-19, Nigerian ports are working towards 24 hours weekly operations, multi-modal operations and delivery of cargoes, integrating all key players and provision of a national carrier. Oyina Kaluoka, NTA News.
The Kebbi State Governor and Chairman of the Progressive Governors Forum, Abubakar Atiku Bagudu, has commended the federal government's intervention programs towards reducing the effect of the coronavirus pandemic on the vulnerable. This was during an interaction with the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development, Sadia Umar Farouk, where he expressed readiness to support and partner to improve some of the initiatives.
We have received support. Many states, including Kebbi, has received support from the ministry to support us in the coronavirus pandemic. And cash transfer programs are expanding. Anchor Borrowers program have always felt that it can be calibrated to help those who have benefited to have a skill and a trade.
The minister, while responding, says state governors play a critical role in ensuring that these interventions by the federal government reach the desired beneficiaries.
Most of the programs that we do, we have to, engage with them, especially those programs that are really targeted at the poorest of the poor, because they are their constituents. We hope that going forward we'll be able to improve on the existing programs that we have, to build on them so that we have a maximum impact.
And up ahead on News Extra, trending security stories and the justification for the establishment of an ivory tower towards enhancing the intellectual capacity of Nigerian soldiers. Stay with us for all the details after this time out. Thanks for staying. Nigeria is gradually picking up from the reality of pervasive corruption, failing security and economic challenges of the past with the change mantra of President Muhammadu Buhari in the last 5 years. Abubakar Usman Akwanga reports that guests on NTA's Tuesday Live underscored the administration's gains in multi-sectoral and multifaceted dimensions of the nation's economy.
The continued effort in returning the economy to its right footing, reorganization of the national security architecture, and generation of investment in the last 5 years brought the views of guests at equal par.
Unless you have a strong leader, he may get frustrated and not for a point effectively. But all the criticisms some people are doing in Nigeria, President Buhari is firm on his commitments. The projects that were abandoned has brought them back.
I can't remember any administration that has committed itself to completing projects started by previous administrations.
Major reforms in the socio-economic cycle of the country and other intervention programs initiated by federal government is encouraging massive economic participation and sustaining diversification efforts, power and road infrastructure, housing, social investment programs, rural and agricultural development, revamping of rail transport are some of the achievements on the other side, in addition to security breakthrough.
First, he said he was going to deal with the issue of corruption. He said he was going to address the issue of insecurity. He said he's going to address the issue of our economy. So in making any assessment of his performance, let us look at those three indices. And if you look at those three indices, you certainly will give him a pass mark.
And nobody is safe. Our roads are not safe. Our villages are not safe. Even the food stuff we eat in the markets are not safe because they are polluted by people who feel that this country should not stay in peace. So if we want to develop our democracy, we have to all put our heads together, remove the evil deeds in our hearts, and then join our hands together and develop our country, because this is the only country we have.
As the administration continues to serve the nation for the next 3 years, guests believed that conversations like these will strengthen and promote development in Abuja. Abubakar Usman Akwanga, NTA News.
And a bit on security now. The Minister of Defense, Police Affairs, Interior and Information and Culture have resolved to effectively drive the presidential directive to end banditry, insurgency and terrorism and related crimes threatening the nation. This resolution came at the end of a meeting to fashion out an operational template to achieving the above objective. Defense Minister Major General Bashir Magashi hosted the meeting. Information and Culture Minister Lai Mohammed says the meeting also focused on strategies to deploy crisis communication strategies to end the menace. In the meantime, President Muhammadu Buhari is determined to restore normalcy, peace and stability in areas affected by banditry across the country. National Security Advisor Major General Babagana Mongono gave the assurance when he led a high-powered security delegation of the federal government on a condolence visit to the government and people of Sokoto State over the recent bandits attack that claimed many lives, and Alhaji Abdullahi has more.
The National Security Advisor said their visit to Sokoto State is on the directives of President Muhammadu Buhari to, on his behalf, condole the governments and the people of the entire Northwest over the recent losses of lives as a result of banditry. He said the federal government is working hard on re-equipping the nation's security outfits, adding that President Muhammadu Buhari is highly determined to tackle security issues in totality across the country.
He's asked me to convey to you his determination to rid your state of these elements and to restore normalcy so that there is social stability, economic stability, and progress.
Governor Aminu Waziri Tambol described their visit to the state as more of a soothing bond and optimistic that President Muhammadu Buhari is responding to all their requests on security eventualities. Due to general security threats to smaller villages across the remote areas of the state, his administration, he said, is looking into the possibility of merging some of the settlements as they have become easy targets.
I can assure you that there is synergy here in Sokoto amongst all of the services. They work together and we work together with them. And the common objective is to secure the state, in particular the areas where we're having all of these challenges.
The delegation was also at the Sultan's Palace in Sokoto. Dalatu Abdullahi, NTA News.
Meanwhile, the NSA-led delegation was also in Katsina State, where General Babagana Mongono condemned the killing of innocent citizens. He was addressing newsmen after a closed-door meeting with Governor Aminu Bello Masari. Abdul Malik Hassan reports.
Following the directive of President Muhammadu Buhari,
A delegation of security service chiefs was in Katsina State, where the service chiefs met with Governor Aminu Masari and brainstormed on the security challenges bedeviling Katsina State, which led to the killings of innocent citizens and destruction of properties. Briefing newsmen after the closed-door meeting with Governor Aminu Masari, which took about 1 hour, the National Security Advisor Babagana Munguno, who led the delegation, said they have agreed to adopt new strategies in fighting insecurity bedeviling the state to ensure peace is fully restored.
We emphasized on human security being the centerpiece of the National Security Strategy of 2019. And we're going to look into these areas that are specified in the National Security Strategy to work to bring to an end the current threats facing not just Katsina State but even the other states.
The delegation was also at the Emir of Katsina Palace to commiserate with him and the people of the state over the demise of many people as a result of the armed banditry. The Emir of Katsina, Abdul Mumin Kabir Usman, appreciated the effort of President Muhammadu Buhari for the directive, saying that it will go a long way in addressing the security challenges bedeviling the state. It could be recalled in the recent weeks, bandits have wreaked havoc in some local government areas of Katsina State. As a result, many lives were lost and property worth millions of naira destroyed. In Katsina, Abdul Malik Hassan, NTA News.
And there is a saying that the souls of security and education are united by birth. No wonder the Nigerian Army has established a university in Biu in Borno State. And when a public hearing on the establishment bill came up at the National Assembly, it was all about complementing the war against insurgency. And Abdullahi Aminu was there.
Insurgency has led to several developmental challenges in the northeastern part of Nigeria through the destruction of life and properties. The situation, according to the Chief of Army Staff Lieutenant General Tukur Yusuf Buratai at the public hearing, requires reinvention of moral, civic and technical education that will go hand in hand with the future security architecture of the country.
It is positioned as a model for the civil-military cooperation relationship with its multi-layer and top-bottom interface.
It should be a university whose degree will be comparable to any in the world.
The ministry is very happy that the university is taking off. We shall not only compete, but we shall be among the top 5 universities in this country.
Suggestions were made on the need to decentralize the university's campuses to all geopolitical zones of the country and ensure the classification of the university as special one.
We will take that into consideration before we finally present the bill for consideration by the Senate.
The vision of the Nigerian Army University is to improve the present security architecture of the country and install the discipline needed for the Nigerian Army to compete effectively with its counterparts globally. From the National Assembly, Abdullahi Aminu, NTA News.
Provision of a qualitative education to the citizens is one in the 10-point agenda of Governor Babagana Umar Zulum's administration in Borno State. And Jadwe John Jessini in this report examines the investment made to reposition the education sector in the last 1 year.
The importance of education to every society cannot be overemphasized, as it is a major requirement to the growth and development of any society in modern times. Despite the enormous challenges of the insurgency, economic depression and the most recent coronavirus pandemic, significant progress has been made to turn around the education sector. The Boko Haram insurgency brought huge setback to the education sector, with many schools across the state destroyed by the insurgents, making it imperative for reconstruction and upgrading of the facilities at all levels of education. Having education among his 10-pact agenda, Governor Babagana Umar Zulum marched towards with action by appropriating a lion's share of the 2020 budget to the education sector. A total of 76 physical educational projects have been executed across 21 local government areas of the state in the last 1 year. 34 out of these were new projects based on need assessments of the communities. These include 6 mega schools at Njimtilo, Muna, Abuja Shariton, Ajilari Cross, Mbalala and Fatu Sandi, as well as blocks of classrooms across the state.
We have seen him going all over the place, from the metropolis to the local governments, trying to renovate the schools, providing furniture and ensuring that staff are adequately catered for by way of showing interest in their welfare.
This act of selfless service by the Governor Zulum's administration has ensured enrollment of thousands of children, particularly those of the less privileged, to have access to education, giving them a sense of belonging.
Before, there is no school around this area. If you have a child, you can take it to Burumkutu, at least takes 5 kilometers or 6 kilometers.
Education can move and progress as it's supposed to be.
This administration is looking to the possibility of recruiting qualified personnel into our schools.
After a decade-long insurgency which had a negative impact on the education sector, Governor Babagana Umar Zulum is poised to reposition education to the next level. In Maiduguri, Jedwajon Jesni, NTA News.
A federal high court sitting in Benin has issued an order restraining the police, Edo State and Dangote Group from interfering with W.H.O Group's Cement PLC's operations at the mining sites located in Ogbon-Okbela, Edo State. This followed a Benin Federal High Court order restraining the police, Dangote Industries, Dangote Cement PLC from interfering with W.H.O's operations of the disputed mining lease sites. A statement by W.H.O management indicates that the court not only found that W.H.O Group has always been in possession of the mining sites, but clearly found that the first and second respondents and Dangote Group invaded and disrupted its operations in the affected and disputed mining sites during the pendency of 2 other cases. According to W.H.O Group, this judgment is one major step towards the final vindication of its rights over the mining sites, and in line with its position that it holds the legal mining leases to the disputed sites, and that all parties in this dispute allowed the court be the final arbiter. W.H.O has now resumed operations at the disputed Ogbon-Okbela mines as ordered by the court. And former Minister of Justice and Attorney General of the Federation, Mohammed Adokesan, has been rearraigned before the Federal High Court in Abuja on money laundering related charges. His rearraignment before Justice Inyang Ekpo followed the transfer of the case from Court 2 to Court 5, and Judiciary Correspondent Vera Chumuba was in court for NTA News.
Apart from the transfer from Court 2 to Court 5, indicating that the matter starts afresh, that is de novo, there are 2 underlying components to the charges against him: the money laundering charges and the sale and fraudulent disposal of proceeds of sale arising from Malabo oil and gas deal. Wednesday's rearrangement of the defendants borders on the money laundering related offenses. Adoke was rearranged with an Abuja businessman, Aliu Abubakar, on a 7-count charge. When the charges were read and plea taken, they pleaded not guilty, though no amendment was effected on the charge. 6 out of the 7 count relate to Adoke's largely fraudulent activities in disposing the proceeds of Malabo oil deal, while 1 was against Abubakar, the co-defendant, accused of making payments of 300 million naira equivalent into Adoke's account in violation of Money Laundering Act. The EFCC had preferred the charges against the defendant in September 2013. Adoke was, among other things, accused of receiving US dollar equivalent of 300 million naira from Abubakar and paying the dollar equivalent of more than 367 million naira to one Usman Mohammed Bello. The former Justice Minister was equally accused of making structural cash payments in 22 tranches, amounting to 80 million naira, and another in 13 tranches estimated at 50 million into his Unity Bank account. In Abuja, Viera Chumuba, NTA News.
Still on judiciary, the Federal High Court, Abuja, has deferred hearing in the fundamental rights enforcement suit instituted by the former governor of Edo State, Adams Oshomole, against the Edo State government. He is challenging the proceedings of a judicial commission of inquiry which allegedly indicted his administration. Olabode Arewa reports.
Edo State Governor Godwin Obaseki had set up a judicial commission of inquiry chaired by Justice James Oyomire in January 2020 to investigate the construction and equipping of the Edo Specialist Hospital under Oshomole's administration. Following the setting up of the commission and the submission of his report, Oshomole approached the court seeking to set aside the panel's report on the grounds that it was not given fair hearing. Justice Ahmed Mohammed had earlier ordered the state government to take action for the arrest and prosecution of Oshomole, pending the determination of the suit. At the resumed hearing, counsel to Edo State government told the court that they have just received processes and would need time to respond.
Apparently, he didn't receive any form of invitation, and there was no indication that he was invited. And don't forget, this happened during the COVID-19 regulation.
The court has adjourned the matter to June 29, 2020 for hearing. In Abuja, Olabode Arewa, NTA News.
The federal government says the gloomy description of the country's debt profile as painted by former Vice President Atiku Abubakar in his press statement is nothing but a deliberate attempt to spread doom anchored on a false premise. In a statement signed by Segun Adeyemi, Special Assistant to the Minister of Information and Culture, Lai Mohammed, said, while the federal government welcomes constructive criticism, such must be anchored on verifiable facts rather than speak from an uninformed position for the fun of it.
The Information and Culture Minister noted that there is no doubt that former Vice President Atiku Abubakar loves our country and wishes it well. Otherwise, he would not have sustained his serial quest for the country's highest position. One can only hope that his research to the use of such words as precipice, foreclosure, and economic ruins does not reflect anything but best wishes for the country at this time. Lai Mohammed maintained that the figure of Nigeria's debt-to-revenue ratio of 99% in the first quarter of 2020, quoted by the former vice president, is not in the medium-term expenditure framework and fiscal strategy paper where he claimed he got it from. The statement further queried the source of the first quarter figures of 943.12 billion naira for debt servicing and 950.56 billion for retained revenue. Therefore, Atiku's statement that debt services does not equate to debt payment is not only wrong, but ill-informed. On the former vice president's assertion that revenue needs to go up, Lai Mohammed said this administration has introduced several measures to shore up revenues, as the passage and implementation of the Finance Act 2019, various ongoing reforms in the oil and gas sector, tax administration and collections, as well as the strategic revenue growth initiatives. Saying, contrary to the statement credited to Atiku Abubakar, that Nigeria has experienced alarming and unprecedented increase in the ratios of debt to GDP and debt service to revenue, indeed, Nigeria's ratio of debt to GDP is one of the lowest in the world, at 19%, as at December 31st, 2019. Lai Mohammed said, unlike what obtained in the past, the loans being obtained by the current administration are being primarily used to finance infrastructure projects, as no responsible government will sit by and do nothing. This present administration's borrowing, therefore, is aimed at mostly revamping our infrastructure. The loans for the educational sector will contribute to the development of our human capital, while the loans for the agricultural sector will help the move to diversify the economy.
National Working Committee of the All Progressives Congress has reaffirmed former Oyo State Governor and Deputy National Chairman South of the party, Abiola Ajimobi, as the acting National Chairman of the party. National Vice Chairman South of the party, Hilad Etta, addressed the media at the end of a closed-door meeting on behalf of the acting national chairman. He said the National Working Committee has constituted a 7-member electoral panel ahead of the Edo governorship primary, which has Imo State Governor Senator Hope Uzodinma as chairman.
And so, according to the constitution of our party, the NWC reaffirms His Excellency Chief Ajimobi, Deputy National Chairman South, as the acting national chairman of the party. We will also make plans in due time to have the congresses of our party from the ward culminating at the state level in Rivers State. The NWC also noted that Chief Victor Giadom had resigned to contest as deputy governor of the party in the last election, and that the party has no recollection that the South-South committee, the South-South zone of the party had represented him.
INEC Chairman Professor Mahmoud Yakubu says the 27th of June 2020 deadline for the conduct of party primaries and the 6 p.m. Monday 29th June 2020 deadline for the submission of candidates and their credentials for the Edo governorship election remains sacrosanct, and there will be no extension. The INEC Chairman, who gave the advice at an interagency consultative meeting on election security this Wednesday, observed that arising from the experience in managing the nomination of candidates for the last two governorship elections in Bayelsa and Kogi states, it is important to draw the attention of political parties to the 4 mandatory requirements for eligibility of candidates for governorship elections, which are: the candidate must be a Nigerian citizen by birth, must have attained the age of 35 years, must be a member of and sponsored by a political party, and must be educated up to at least school certificate level or its equivalent. Adherence to these clear constitutional provision is compulsory in order to avoid unnecessary litigations, while calling on security personnel to be proactive during electioneering campaigns. The INEC chairman promised that a draft code of conduct for the security personnel on COVID-19 has been developed and would be out soon. And as momentum builds ahead of the Edo governorship primaries, the Ondo governorship primaries are also gaining more attention as more aspirants emerge. One of them is Shola Iji, Nigeria's ambassador to Togo, while at the APC national headquarters to submit his expression of interest and nomination forms. He appeals to the party leadership to conduct a direct mode of party primary during the exercise scheduled to hold on the 20th July 2020, accompanied by family, friends and political associates. The ambassador said this is the time to join the race for the #1 position of the Sunshine State to enable him galvanize the abundant human and natural resources of Ondo State for the good of the people.
That will be acceptable, that will be equitable, that will be more involving is the direct mode of primaries. I have pledged myself that before the primaries and immediately after the primaries, by his special grace, after clinching the ticket of the party, I work very hard to reunite members of the party.
So for the fact that you came here to pick this for means that you like APC. And I want to assure you that your desire under APC shall be fruitful.
National Organizing Secretary of APC, Ima Ibedero, assured the ambassador of the party's readiness to provide a level playing field for all answering questions from journalists. Ambassador Iji believes that governance is a continuum and promised a progressive approach and strategy to this effect in line with the party's agenda. The Ondo State governorship election is scheduled to hold on the 10th of October 2020. It is a crucial arm of government with different actors holding sway at various times. Find out why the current men and women of Nigeria's hallowed chambers pride themselves as pioneers of many milestones of good legislation as we take a look at the journey so far of the 9th Assembly. That will be right after where we return from this break we're about to take. Good to know you're still with us. There have been observable changes in the Nigerian Senate in the last 1 year. Positive ones, so to say. These are not structural changes, but changes in philosophy, tactics, and tune. First, it was the nature of legislature-executive relationship, and then the pace of bill passage and resolutions. Ignatius Nko in this report will give you an overview of the Senate in the last 12 months.
At inception, there were issues that stared the new legislative chamber in the face, begging for reconsideration.
Our determination is to evolve a well-resourced Senate with a vision and a great sense of commitment to securing a prosperous future for our great nation.
It was clear the new legislative chamber had a lot in its plate. Changes in budget process, swift attention to bills, conclusive investigative process, and most importantly, improved relationship with other arms of government, especially the executive, and transparency in legislative budgeting were conspicuously on the radar.
I think it's more on the legislative agenda set by the leadership when we first came in a year ago.
14 bills were passed, including major economic bills. The Deep Offshore Amendment Bill, which expanded Nigeria's oil revenue. The Finance Bill 2019 that restructured Nigeria's tax base and removed agricultural and some pharmaceuticals from taxation. And the Public Procurement Act Amendment Bills aimed at reducing delay in the process.
The way in which Mr. President submitted and within less than 3 months it was passed, I think that's a big achievement.
The working relationship with the executive reached a crescendo when it passed the 2020 budget without any dissension. Less than 3 months it was presented by President Muhammadu Buhari.
The essence of passing the budget at that early period was to return the budget to the normal budget cycle from January to December.
As you are aware, this Senate, much as we want to do the right things in the interest of Nigerians, we ask the right questions, but we want to collaborate and cooperate with the executive, because that's the only way you can move the country forward. That's the only way citizens can benefit.
Between June 2019 to date, the Senate considered 77 motions and confirmed more than 70 appointments, but it received criticism over the purchase of alleged expensive cars for its members and the introduction of the social media and hate speech bills. The Senate in the last 1 year lost 3 members. Well, the Senate has been hands-on in its COVID-19 interventions, such as meeting relevant stakeholders and approving intervention funds. And then the Senate has also amended the 2020 budget to be able to meet with the realities of the time. But Nigerians will also be expecting more in months to come. Ignatius Nko, NTA News.
Thank you, Ignatius. Now from the Senate to the House of Representatives. It is also 1 year since the inauguration of the 9th House of Representatives, which in the period recorded many firsts. The return of the budget to the January to December cycle and the record 2 weeks passage of the amended 2020 Appropriation Bill, the Economic Stimulus Bill in response to COVID-19. Should I go on? Well, these are a few of the pace-setting achievements of the 9th House. National Assembly correspondent Lami Ali takes it up from here.
The caliber of principal officers at the inauguration of the 9th House, whether by fate or coincidence, was clear from the onset that experience will be the driving force of the 360-member House, drawn from 10 political parties, who committed themselves to the resolution that nation building is a joint task. The House drafted a 15-point legislative agenda, among which are budget reform, fighting corruption and accountability.
Our mission is clear and our path is defined. With God on our side and with the support of our people, we will not fail.
Without compromising its independence, the Ninth House aligned with the executive for the good of the country.
We feel government is one process that at least within the tripartite existence of the judiciary, the executive arm of government, the legislature, we must have to work together on the same page to provide what people expect of us.
Members have also come to realize that what is important is what they take back to their constituencies, not engaging in any fiscal or quarrels.
We passed into law at third reading 39 bills which would be transmitted or have been transmitted to Senate for concurrence.
It has in the last 1 year introduced 853 bills, out of which 36 were passed, 639 are waiting second reading, 103 referred to committees, 65 are at third reading stage, 2 bills withdrawn and 1 negatived. Major bills passed are the 2020 budget, the finance bill, the power sector reform bill, the economic stimulus bill.
Others are awaiting presidential assent, like the deep offshore-onshore dichotomy law.
The infectious bill, that shows you that we are thinking how to move things forward. That shows you that the condition we find ourselves, even with the COVID, that we don't like it. And so we are trying to add value.
Apart from hundreds of legislative intervention motions on wide-ranging issues, the House leadership intervened in many national issues by holding meetings with service chiefs over security breaches in parts of the country, met with stakeholders in the power sector to prevent a total shutdown, and the meeting with resident doctors to stop health crisis. Legislative business for the Ninth House in the second year would be eventful, considering the many constitutional amendment bills introduced, such as those seeking inclusion of National Assembly presiding officers as members of the National Security Council, extension of immunity to them, and amendment to enable independent candidacy for political offices. From the National Assembly, Lami Ali, NTA News.
We'll now take you to Lagos, where 2 children lost their lives this Wednesday after they were trapped underneath the rubble of a story building in Gafari Balogun area of Ogudu, Lagos State. Abolore Ogbara, who was at the scene, now reports.
Black Wednesday for Ogudu residents, no thanks to a mudslide that caused a building collapse and claimed 2 lives. Many were robbed of their property. 2 children, a male and a female, were trapped under the rubble. Their bodies were recovered during the rescue operation.
I was staying down with my children in the parlor. So along the line, when they were like stopping me, I said I should go inside and sleep. Immediately, I want to enter my parlor. That's where the sound of the house collapsed. So it flinged me out inside the parlor. So that is when we discovered that the up fell and the 2 children up there have gone.
It's just so surprising that he destroyed everything. Even himself, he can't get any clothes to wear right now.
Lasema response team demolished the remaining part of the 1-story building.
Because if you watch most of the building there, it is only that tree that is giving them problem.
Please, we need government help to come and help us at this area to remove all these trees.
Lagos State Emergency Management Agency says integrity tests will also be carried out on other buildings in the area. In Lagos, Abolore Ogbara, NTA News.
Bequeathing a world-class oil and gas national company that is transparently operating within best global practices for many is a far-fetched dream. However, for the management of NNPC, it is a task that must be pursued in the interest of millions of Nigerians who own the NNPC. In the light of these, NNPC audited financial statements was made public for the first time. Lydia Sampson tells us more.
Many
Mele Kyari is leading a management team who mostly rose through the ranks in NNPC to be at the helm of affairs. The team made a commitment to operate and improve on transparency, accountability, performance and excellence, acronymed TAPE. They are not there yet, but key players say there are more improved results in line with the new spirit.
From a financial point of view, they are going to be looking at their assets, which is what is that NNPC has, that has a sustained value. And then they're going to be looking at the sources of the revenue they are generating and looking at whether the business is sustainable or not sustainable. And if not sustainable, why is it not sustainable? And to the credit of the current GMD, he has continued to emphasize production efficiency.
We've had the opportunity of oversighting this industry, and most especially the activities of NNPC. I think in terms of transparency is more enhanced. In terms of probity, it's that they are more accountable to the people. In terms of effectiveness, they have actually deployed their skills in ensuring that what used to be the norm before is no longer there.
The audited financial accounts of all NNPC subsidiaries for 2018 is on the NNPC's website, meaning it is virtually at the tip of the finger for anyone to access. Little wonder the Nigerian Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative, NIETI, described as laudable the decision of the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation making public its audited financial statements under the leadership of Mele Kyari. Waziri Adio, Executive Secretary NIETI, in a statement also commended the monthly NNPC reports published since 2016. Waziri said, given NNPC's antecedent and its prominent role in the oil and gas sector and in the country, the publication of its audited account is positive, signaling more openness for the oil and gas sector and for Nigeria.
For many, NNPC making her audited accounts public is a welcome development. They are, however, quick to call for sustainability. In Abuja, Lydia Samson, NTA News.
You know them as courier service delivery agents. They go about in vans or motorcycles, delivering goods to customers nationwide. What you may not know is some of them, in their bid to beat time limits, tend to put other road users at risk by disregarding traffic rules and regulations. And Daniel Adiriye has been keeping an eye on the scenario.
Once largely unpatronized, have now become a mainstay in the e-commerce sector. Courier services, as they are largely known, are part and parcel of the delivery of goods and services to customers nationwide. Now, there are two dominant words in this sector: speed and efficiency. Now, speed in this context comes with a twist, as some of these courier service agents sadly speedily break traffic rules and regulations that guide the businesses that they carry out.
My observations and other officers' observations is that, just like you said, at junctions, most of them don't want to stop simply because I don't know if the organizations are just firing and hiring their staff. Because if they were the ones we have trained, we don't expect them to behave the way they are doing.
By the time we're able to get these companies, they will be able to have a data bank for them as courier services using motorcycles.
It is from the management rules that if they see the traffic line, they should do what? Beat it.
I don't see a reason why you should not stop. Despite that you are a courier service, somebody or dispatch rider.
If there's no other vehicle coming from the opposite side, I will go.
Even with the red?
Yes, I will go.
Well, it turns out many Nigerians need to remember that rules are there to guide the everyday life of the people, whether traffic or constitutional. But the fact remains, only the living can acquire wealth. And like traffic signs say, speed kills. In Abuja, Daniel Adiriye, NT News.
Well, Daniel, you've said it all. Speed kills. Just do the right thing. Efforts at ensuring food security and a framework to guard against violence against persons. Hang on there as we... Welcome back. Nigeria's elderly population of about 11 million is under the greatest threat from coronavirus. This is why providing for their peculiar needs within the context of the coronavirus pandemic is the focus of this year's World Elder Abuse Awareness Day. Ekemini Williams has more.
In the spirit of the present time, there was strict compliance with the safe distancing and face mask protocol at this event to mark the World Elder Abuse Awareness Day.
I welcome all of us to this gathering.
Elderly persons are also considered to be at the greatest risk from the coronavirus, which explains the theme of the day, older persons and COVID-19, raising voices, breaking the circle of inequality, discrimination, neglect and abuse. W.H.O Foundation and Nigerian Union of Journalists, in collaboration with the Gerontology Association of Nigeria, drew attention to the challenges confronting the elderly, who have become among the most vulnerable in the society because of age-related ailments and reduced incomes.
Take a look at the pensions issue in Nigeria to clearly understand how much abuse that the elderly face in this country.
Currently, we have less than a dozen geriatricians in the country. So if we look at that statistics, even if we say 12 people to 11 million older adults, that's almost a ratio of 1 to 1 million. That is definitely not acceptable.
And they go to hospitals and they are not attended to. You know, so many things went on during this COVID-19 lockdown.
They regretted the delay in approval of the National Policy on Care and Welfare of Older Persons because of the disruptions caused by COVID-19.
We are hoping and praying to God too that at the end of this COVID-19, the document will be sent to FAIC for approval. It is only when it is approved that we will know that the real work on aging will begin.
Executive Director, W.H.O Foundation, Omakaro, called for more protection of older persons and their inclusion in the country's agenda.
Older persons are invisible in government programming. Older persons are invisible in development agendas. In agriculture, we have not heard much about target on older persons. Social protection, we have pillar programs for all the other age demographics, but there's no pointed program on older persons. And older persons should have older persons grants.
Nigerian Network of Journalists for Aging was inaugurated by the Nigerian Union of Journalists to undertake further advocacy on the plight of the elderly in our society. The Ministries of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development, Ministry of State Finance, Budget and National Planning, the National Human Rights Commission, the National Bureau of Statistics and the NTA, who can all help the cause of the elderly, were represented at the event held at the NUJ Press Center in Abuja. In Abuja, Ekemini Williams, NTA News.
Now, if you think adults are the only ones who encounter challenges and have a whole lot of puzzles to solve, then think again, because even children have their own share of baggage to carry, and you can imagine the heavy load of burden to bear on their tender shoulders. Let's join Momso Damien Lati as she takes us through the plight of the African child.
At 13, Hadiza has never seen the four walls of a classroom because she's never attended one alongside her siblings. All they've ever done since birth is join their mother and her friends on the street or by the wayside to beg for alms, the school of hard knocks. However, formal schooling is a lifelong dream of hers. At 16, all things being equal, the Nigerian child is expected to be winding up secondary school or even beginning tertiary education, but not so for Sunday Agbo. 16 years, no apparent defects, and still in primary 5.
My mommy and my daddy, there is no money to train me in the school, that is why they chase me away sometimes.
Okay, taking these young boys who traveled far distances leaving behind their families in search of religious knowledge, bare feet, hungry, without proper clothing, and lacking the care every child deserves. The sad commentary continues with the stories of these 7, 11, 12, and 13-year-olds, all defiled and abused by men old enough to be their fathers.
Yes, I was abused by 12 men at different times. They approached me while I was hawking.
When I was sleeping, they gave me button.
Or Is it Daniel, who has seen and experienced hunger in the lockdown, compelling him to turn businessman overnight?
The first lockdown, I was at home, I was not doing anything. So we suffer before we eat. My mom will come to market, she will not sell. Sometimes we eat once in a day. Before my friend now introduced me to selling of pure water.
These are only a few of the million of the faces of an African child. Starvation, abuses, child labor, exposure to all forms of danger, and inability to acquire education, not to talk of quality one.
The chair is no good, and board is not good.
Their plight crystallizes the focus of the International Day of the African Child.
Let them cooperate with us, let them let them do everything for us.
The genesis of these is traced back to the Soweto uprising of 1976, where some South African students protesting the poor system of education and apartheid lost their lives.
It gives every African child the courage, it gives every African child the boldness to speak if they have been abused.
The sad face of the African child mirrors its lost innocence and fading hopes in a continent battling a myriad of problems. The solution may just be in the caring hand extended by a concerned elder. Momso Damien Dati, NTA News.
The announcement by the Minister of Agriculture that the federal government is to spend 13 billion naira to fight locust and quail birds has been generating reactions from Nigerians. A fact check carried out by NTA indicates that the 13 billion naira approved by the Federal Executive Council is not only meant for fighting locust and quail birds infestation, but other livestock concerns. Here is Musa Baba Ali with the details.
Winnowing is the traditional process of separating chaff from grains, just like what these women are doing. This is to ensure that the grains are free from hogs. It is exactly what news fact checking is about. It ensures that information is not only scrutinized, but also makes fact checked are disseminated appropriately. This informed this mission. Fact-checking on the 13 billion naira pest control fund announced by the Minister of Agriculture and Rural Development, Mohammed Sabananono, in Benin Kebbi State.
The President approved intervention to the extent of 13 billion naira to fight these menace.
These are facts that the Federal Executive Council had on the 11th of March this year approved 13 billion 940 million naira intervention fund to the Minister of Agriculture. However, the Minister of Agriculture, who announced the figure while flagging off the area fumigation against cooler birds and locusts, did not give details on what the money will be spent on. The fact check carried out by NTA Agricultural Desk confirmed that the 13 billion naira is to cover 3 major agricultural activities. Information made available by the Ministry of Agriculture shows that the sum of 2,857 million naira is meant for aerial and ground control of killer birds, locusts, and grasshoppers in 12 states. 9,602 million naira is to be expended on control of transboundary animal and zoonotic diseases. The document also reveals that the federal government will upgrade abattoirs and slaughterhouses nationwide.
Apart from the issue of the migratory pest, we are also faced with challenges of animal diseases and zoonotic diseases. And most of these zoonotic diseases are the ones that affect human beings. So we also requested that the federal government should support with an intervention fund so that we can take care of these animal diseases that affect animal production and those zoonotic diseases.
The Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations had alerted the Nigerian government on invasion by locusts and cooler birds in West Africa and the need for government to guard her territory. In Abuja, Musa Baba Aliyu, NTA News.
I will now take you to Gombe, where the state government has procured 20,000 metric tons of fertilizer for resale to farmers at subsidized price for the 2020 wet season farming. Correspondent Emmanuel Akila has details of the report.
Persistent hike
in the market price of chemical fertilizer has been a bane to sufficient food production among peasant farmers in Nigeria, a situation that has attracted attention of the government over the years.
Gombe has procured 20,000 metric tons of assorted fertilizer for sale to our farmers. This is a clear testimony of our commitment to improving agricultural production in the state. Our objective is to ensure that our rural farmers are supplied all the basic farm inputs at their doorsteps.
Stakeholders in agriculture appreciate the importance accorded the sector by the Inouye Haya's administration despite dwindling resources occasioned by the novel coronavirus pandemic.
Fertilizer has remained a critical input in agriculture. Therefore, the procurement of the fertilizer by the Gombe State government for resale to farmers at subsidized rate is a welcome development on their part, and they see it as a morale booster towards ensuring food sufficiency in Nigeria.
This is a welcome intervention. We really appreciate it. We appreciate His Excellency for bringing, for timely intervening in terms of fertilizer application and agrochemicals.
The fertilizer has been sent to agricultural stores in the local government areas for easy access by farmers at the subsidized rate of 5,000 naira per bag. In Gombe, Emmanuel Akida, NTA News.
Anything to improve food production at this period of COVID-19 threat to food security is good news. No surprise, therefore, that farmers in Ebonyi State are taking advantage of federal government's agricultural inputs for farmers across the country. Chika Okorie reports that rice farmers who are beneficiaries of this federal government's gesture in Ebonyi State are set to improve their yield.
In the economic diversification plan of the federal government, the agricultural sector takes premium, obviously to bridge the gap created by the ban placed on importation, especially rice. In Ebonyi State, about 5,000 farmers under the aegis of Rice Farmers Association of Nigeria have received inputs such as Faro 44, fertilizer, among others, at a subsidized rate to embark on massive cultivation of the crop they have comparative advantage on.
Mr. President feels that Ebonyi is historically a rice-producing area. But to say that we are not doing the best, our potentials in rice production is still far-fetched. He felt that he could do something better by assisting the farmers to increase the rice production in Ebonyi State. And that is why we brought the inputs. The rest of this thing is for you to collect and pay back.
Describing the gesture as a boost to rice cultivation, some of the beneficiaries lamented the paucity of fund affects land preparation.
It's going to help boost farming. Next year you are going to see the increase in yield, because we have never been assisted like this.
We appreciate the federal government for sending this thing very early. It will help us to have great harvest next year.
In Chika Ukore,
And Nigeria has added her voice condemning any action or threat that will undermine the ability of the International Criminal Court to freely exercise its mandate and to carry out its core functions. A statement by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Nigeria reiterates strong and consistent support for the International Criminal Court and its vital mission. The statement further explains the stand of Nigeria as captured during the 20th anniversary of the adoption of the Rome Statute, in which President Muhammadu Buhari restated Nigeria's position, pointing out the alarming proliferation of serious crimes around the world. Also at the time, the President urged all states that have not yet done so to, as a matter of deliberate state policy, assent to the Rome Statute for it to become a universal treaty. And on a sad note, President Muhammadu Buhari commiserates with family of Justice M.O. Ayetunde, sympathizing with friends and all professional colleagues over the passing of the erudite lawyer. In a statement by the Senior Special Assistant to the President on Media and Publicity, Garba Shehu, President Buhari also commiserates with the Nigerian Bar Association and body of benches, believing that the years of sacrifice and diligent work of the legal luminary will continue to resonate for posterity to learn and be inspired. The President prays for a repose of the soul of the departed, urging family members, including senior assistants to the President on finance and fiscal policy, Dr. Bode Oyetunde, to take solace in their father's good works. And with that, we conclude News Extra for tonight. Thank you so much for watching. I am Fatima Umar Buba. Please stay safe.